We're starting with the colleges. If the College of Humanities and Legal Studies is ready, College of Humanities and Legal Studies. Right, let's welcome Dr. Wenchels Kuka. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
So, good afternoon. My task this afternoon will be very simple. I am going to be a provocateur, and I'll be speaking about the resonance of humanistic theory in propelling innovative research. May I know whether my slides are up? Is Eunice around? Is that correct? I may indulge you to allow for maybe a minute or two to have the slides up there. Okay, maybe I can get started. All right, so there we go. Okay. Just be rolling for me, okay? It's not working. Okay, so let's go. All right. So we are told that Africa's population is about between 12 to 18%, and that today, despite these populations, Africa produces only 1 to 2% of the world's population. Now, this means a whole lot. We should be thinking about this, that in spite of the huge numbers, about 1.6 billion people, and the research we produce, we can boast of only 1 to 2%. Now, what is even more problematic is that out of this percentage, can we boast of innovative research? Or more importantly, can we speak of theories that are very novel or innovative to the continent? How many of our scholars, theories, and groundbreaking researches are quoted out there in other parts of the world? My name is Wenchels Kuka, and I belong to the Department of Communication Studies. I learned to specialize in rhetoric and political communication. And so I'll be speaking to you from that perspective. In this presentation, I'll be talking about two major theories that I have developed in the field of political communication. So to do that, I'll first talk about my understanding of humanistic theory, and then talk about the theories I will be presenting. So by humanistic theory, I mean a perspective that emphasizes looking at the whole person and the uniqueness of each individual. By humanistic theory, I'm talking about the essential assumptions that people bring to bear as agents of life. So we talk about their free will to act just as the way they would want to act. All right, let's go into the examples because we don't have too much time. The first we want to talk about is this. Now, in your short, it's a video that I have grafted from YouTube. We have Paul Adom Ocher of Metro TV as a host of Good Evening Ghana, and loquacious footballer turned prophet, Reverend Dr. Owusu Bempa. In this presentation, he was making very emphatic statement about the revelation of God to him concerning the fact that former President John Mahama will never ever be president in Ghana, and that God had categorically rejected him. Now, how is it possible that after making huge categorical statements, a year or two later, he comes up again and says, can you help me with the slide, please? It's frozen. Yeah, so a few years later, he comes up again, just a week or two ago, on the campaign platform of the NDC and says, I wish you could play the video. I wish you could play, it's just 19-minute video, 19 seconds video. Can we please play the video? All right, so here he endorses the candidacy or the candidature of Mr. John Dramani Mahama and says, because, I quote, of the good heart of the former president, God has restored Ghana back into the hands of the president, and that there is nothing that's going to happen if the NDC does not win. So whatever happens, the NDC is winning the election, and that saith the Lord. So how do we reconcile this with that? John Beatty tells us that the African is obdurately and insanely religious. That we understand. We understand also the role of religion in politics. However, we have not critically examined how we can theorize or study that phenomenon. We talk about it as though they are exclusive. Either you talk about it in religion or you talk about it in politics. But there have not been serious attempts to theorize or examine critically the role that religion plays in politics. This is where I come in by propounding this theory, which I have. Next slide, please. Which I have titled God's Splaining. Whenever a politician uses the name of God in the furtherance of their politics, the concept I have developed is termed as godsplaining. It is not for nothing that whenever former Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta read the budget, he would always perforate the budget with the name of God. It is not for nothing that when a politician comes on stage, he would say that by the grace of God, I will build this. By the grace of God, I'll construct the road from point X to point Y. And therefore, by using the term or the theory of godsplaining, I refer to it as a political or cultural capital that politicians use to explain and explain away their actions. If they are able to do it, they did it. If they are unable to do it, it wasn't the will of God. To what extent are we going to allow, if indeed we are operating a secular state, if indeed the Constitution is a manual or a document constructed by the people themselves, to what extent is the role of divinity allowed in the construction of church, in the construction of politics, in the construction of states? And what are the implications for our development? So the term godsplaining is now making inroads across the world. I'm told in America It is becoming a buzzword now. And so I consider this an innovative theory. All right, without much ado, let's go to our next one. So, for example, in the work, you have Captain Smart interviewing Prophet Bedu Kobi, and this is what he says. You prophesied that Mahama was going to win the 2020 elections, and the prophet says, yes, exactly what I said. I'm not a prophet who changes his mouth. I speak the truth. I speak the mind of God and things like that. So if Bedu Kobi said Mama was going to win, and then Prophet Owusu Bempah said Akufo-Addo was going to win, which of these prophets indeed spoke the mind of God? And so the theory tries to explain why gospelaining matters and how it's operationalized in politics. The theory, I argue, thrives on three basic assumptions. One, for gospelaining to occur, the first must be a belief in God or a belief in divinity. People will gospelain to you when you have the same or similar beliefs in God. And two, gospelaining will always be a performative, a political performative. And three, gospelaining is done for the sake of manipulating or persuading the hearer. All right, let's go on to the next theory. How many of us remembers this person in the picture? How many of us remembers this person? David Asante. Let my vote count. Let my vote count. So in the build-up to 8 years ago, President Akufo-Addo becoming president, this young man and his group put a lot of pressure on the government of President Mahama and Atamil, President Mahama for that matter. Using social media and electronic media, the pressure really counted. Today, we don't see him anywhere in the media because he's now the managing director of the Ghana Library Board. I am building an argument. I'm gradually building an argument. How about this gentleman? It will not be too clear, but if you try hard, you may see him. Who knows him? Oliver Barker-Vormawor, a Cambridge PhD student who is a lawyer, becoming one of Ghana's leading fighter for what? Fix the country. In fact, he has stolen, sorry to use the word, in quotes, the Fix the Country pressure or momentum from the late Mohammed Kafka, and now whenever you search for Fix the Country, his name pops up. The point I'm making is that dissent and protest are useful, politically useful. Dissent and protest are politically useful. If you study the history of politicians across the world, from Mandela, Nkrumah, to whoever, anytime there is dissent, anytime there is protest, there seems to be a reward. And therefore, out of this, I build a theory on Ogun. Ogun is a mysterious deity in Nigeria or Yoruba cosmology. Ogun was considered as a mysterious deity of war. And so I used the concept of Ogun as my metaphorical concept to understand the works of these protesters or the works of these dissenters. I argue that just as Ogun's mission of intervention, cleansing, and retention, these people do just that, except that their warfare is online. So they fight just as Ogun fights. However, unlike these people, we do not seem to know their true intention. I call that concept the ambiguity of intervention. How do we get to know whether somebody's intervention in politics is genuinely altruistic or it is for a self-motivated end? We don't get to know. And I can bet you, if the NDC wins, you get to see that this gentleman may encumber a position. So it is not easy to denounce, or it's not easy to believe whether they are in for the sake of the good of the people or they are in for their own interests. I term this theory the West African theory of dissent. Whenever you're on WhatsApp, in a popular WhatsApp group, and people are dissenting to an idea, they do not just dissent for the sake of dissenting. There is an interest at heart. There is an interest at stake. So this theory was published in the Black Communication Theory, Volume 2, just 2 weeks ago. Just 2 weeks ago. It's a book that assembles what the editor calls the world's brightest communication theorists. 15 of us put ourselves together for the book. Now, let me quickly explain some of the basic assumptions of the theory. Now, I create a taxonomy of where and what to look out for in dissent. In the first column, you see the forms of dissent. The second column, the functions. The third column, the thematic areas. The final column, how to understand dissent. The first column talks about dissent can be person-led, like Mohammed Kafka began the dissent at Ejura. Fix the Country was begun by Kafka, who thought that Ejura was too dirty, and so he was speaking against government's inability to help clean the environment. Sometimes dissent can be group-led. A group of people can dissent or can show opposition. Sometimes it is sponsored. Sometimes it is sponsored. So when somebody is dissenting, do not be in a hurry to join the dissent. You do not know whether they are doing the bidding of their master. Other times, too, it is engineered. So somebody appears on radio and is shouting on TV, shout, and at the end of the day, they just go and drink tea and they eat together. And you're like, my goodness, yes. But you don't understand that it is simply a performance. They are just performing for the sake of the cameras. Sometimes it is co-opted. All right? So Oliver Barker-Vormawor took away the Fix the Country from Mohammed, and now he is into it, all right, by himself. What are the functions? People show opposition to others because they want to mediate. Sometimes they want to intercede. Sometimes they want to engage in digital warfare. Sometimes it's simply to confront. Sometimes they do it for the sake of money. Whenever Efia Schwarzenegger goes online, on YouTube, or when she goes live, she's not doing it because she may actually care, but the more she runs online, the more money she makes. The more she insults government, the more money she makes. So it is not for nothing that people do all kinds of things online by showing disapproval about government or about some things. If we are speaking about UCC and we are dissenting about UCC, it may be for the sake of mediation, it may be for the sake of confrontation, it may be for the sake of warfare. All right. So the assumptions, quickly, there are 5 assumptions to the theory. The first assumption says that all forms and acts of dissent and counter-dissent are interested and always political. All forms of dissent and counter-dissent are interested and political. There is always going to be an end to it. Number 2, the second assumption, dissent expressed on social media manifests in 3 major forms: person-led, group-led, sponsored, as you can see from the visual. And maybe you can take the last one. The third assumption may say, it is difficult to determine the intention of it may be difficult to determine the intention of dissent, so we don't get to know. So my theory explains this. How do you get to explain somebody's intention? Give it time. The first thing says, give it time. So you see, time, context, and performance. If somebody means well, time will tell. If somebody does not mean well, time will tell. The context will help us to know whether they mean well for the dissent. So how do we apply these theories to industry? One, we can talk about it and its media implications. Our journalists and our media houses need to understand that politicians engage in gossplaining. And so let us call them out to separate the church from the state. It is not for nothing that there is theocracy It's not for nothing that there is democracy. Let us know their places in the realm of what? Governance. In terms of West African theory of dissent, we should now consider a rethink of the communication architecture, especially in terms of our governance structures and the rest. We need to know how to intervene in the domain of politics. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Winchell-Skoka. Let's do it for him again. So next is College of Education Studies. College of Education Studies. Let's welcome her. Kindly note that you have a maximum of 20 minutes. A maximum of 20 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Felicia Elinam Jamesi. Please, my presentation. Please, can you put my slide up? Okay, so whilst he's putting up the slide, okay. All right, so I'm speaking on promoting indigenous play-based pedagogy in kindergarten education. And for today's presentation, I'll focus on the influence on teachers and then learners. So in 2022, there was a nationwide review of kindergarten education in Ghana. And then some of the things that came up in that presentation or that study was that kindergarten teachers were struggling to implement a play-based pedagogy. And then there was a recommendation that we should define a new pedagogy that is culturally sensitive. And reading through the literature, you get to understand that our indigenous play, they are able to promote lifelong skills, talking about negotiation, patience. We also realize that the materials that are needed to engage in this kind of play, they are readily available, they are easy to design, and sometimes you don't even need any material to engage in some of our indigenous play. Agbenyega and his people tried to see what we can get out of our own folk tales and ancestor stories. And they came up to say that beyond the skills, the values, we can also, children can also develop academic and then higher order thinking skills. But then the studies that have been done in this area usually employ questionnaires or interviews to just find out from teachers whether they have any knowledge about the indigenous play, whether they know we can use some of them in teaching concepts. So these studies don't really go in depth into helping the teachers as to how to actually use the pedagogy. Sometimes the knowledge that the teachers give, the way they use the indigenous play is very superficial. For example, a teacher can say, okay, we can use Ampe to teach counting, but that is just at the superficial level. So if we are able to, and the reason is because teachers are not usually trained to use it. We just think that, we take it for granted that once they have the knowledge of it, it means they can use it, but that is not the case. So for this study, the idea was, or the main goal was to develop a professional development program around our own indigenous play. And here I'm defining indigenous play as the play that is found within a particular cultural or sociocultural context. So we can also look at the people in that community as a form of resource. For the purpose of this presentation, I only focus on the third objective, that is to assess how the implementation of the Indigenous Play-Based Professional Development Program influence teachers and learners. So it was a qualitative study with 8 teachers, and the study went through 4 phases. The first phase was the diagnostic phase, where teachers were engaged in interview to allow them articulate their own training needs. Most of the time, teachers go for workshops, they train them, but then they don't use the skills, simply because somebody assumed that this is what they need. So the first phase was to know what they already know, what they are doing, and then how we can use that as a basis for developing the content for the capacity building. So the first phase was analyzed, and then the information that came out, the findings that came out, put together for the capacity building. For example, in the first phase, one of the things that came out during the interview was teachers' knowledge about the curriculum. So teachers were asked whether they know of any documents that tell them how to teach children in the kindergarten. And the teachers no, the curriculum doesn't say we should teach children through play, and that the curriculum says that we should just use our own discretion. And the reason is that even though the teachers had copies of the curriculum, they were only using, they only use it as a material for getting topics. They didn't engage with the frontal matter. For example, they didn't talk about the philosophy when you ask them. Meanwhile, it's the philosophy that tells teachers how they should actually implement the pedagogy. So 7 of the teachers said emphatically that the pedagogy, the curriculum doesn't say we should use play to teach. So it was important to get to know that. And then the capacity building, which was the second phase, we did everything together. We set goals for ourselves, and then the way we were going to go about it. Then we'll move on to the classroom implementation. During the capacity building, some of the things that we discussed during the first 2 meetings were the theory-based. It was theory-based. We looked at Fleer's conceptual framework. It's a cultural historical framework, so it aligned very well with our indigenous play. So we look at the elements and how we can apply them to the kind of play that we have in our classroom. And then we went for the classroom implementation. And then within the classroom implementation, there was a kind of coaching. So for the first few meetings, the teachers will present, they'll plan their lessons together, present, and then I will be there to guide them, we give feedback, and then they use the same feedback to work on themselves. So those are some of the activity. And during the presentation, during the workshop, the teachers were the ones who were taking the lead when it came to the various play, because we wanted them to bring out what they have, not to impose anything on them. There are some organizations that are running workshops for teachers. I was able to get hold of one of the training manuals of one of the very, very top organization, an NGO that is running workshop for teachers in play-based learning. And when I looked through the references, the materials that they put together, none of them cited any Ghanaian or African author, play researcher. So everything was either from Scotland, from England, all over the place, but there was nothing mentioned of Ghana. Meanwhile, that thing was meant for Ghanaian teachers. So we had to make sure we use what we have. And the oldest person in this group was a 57-year-old woman, and she was the one who was leading most of the sessions. The younger ones, most of them had forgotten how to do some of them, Ampe, Anjenshure, Banchimakakuro, and all of that. They have forgotten most of them. So, so what are the findings? So the teachers, after taking them through the training, being with them in the classroom, giving them reflective journals, and then they taking photos, and then talking about them, the teachers said before you came, I just tell the story, and then the learners draw part of the story, and then we are gone. So now we don't do that. And then the other teacher said that it wasn't like first, when I just tell the story, and then we stand up and go. But this time, we extract. And the teacher was talking about integration, because that was one of the key things that was missing before they took part in the study. So the teachers, if you were going to do, maybe dramatize a story outside, we try to help children to make connections between concepts in the environment. So if it is under the tree, a child may be able to identify an ant. A child may be able to see maybe something, an insect. The teacher's responsibility is to make a link between that ant and maybe the tree, maybe that is the habitat. So teachers have been trained to make sure that their lesson, they are helping facilitate children's construction of knowledge. And this teacher, they also became very innovative. So formerly, they just tell the story. But this teacher now, she used the cardboard and then drew the pictures of the story, because the topic was parts of the body. So she used the story of Etinkenekene, Efuduchidushi, and Nankronshira. So she did that, and as she was telling the story, she was rolling it. So even this, she can use this as she can integrate subtraction. One of them is climbing the tree. How many do we now have here? She said that 2. And she was also integrating colors, so she decided to use different colors in doing this. And then also the teachers were actively engaging the learners. So our learners were more like passive recipients of knowledge. They sat down and then the teachers tell them everything that they needed to know. But here, the teachers have to engage the learners in different activities so that the children will be able to understand whatever they were being taught. So they were they were dramatizing the story, and also here the teacher was trying to explain certain things to the children. Teachers were also collaborating. So the teacher in the red, that was her class, but she was struggling to mold the characters. The concept they were teaching was number 1. And so the other colleague was there, and so she was the one helping the children to mold and all of that. And in this, one child has molded Anansi. And this Anansi had 9 legs. So the teacher asked the child, how many legs does this Anansi have? Then they started counting. By the time they got to the 8th one, the child removed 1 without the teacher saying anything. So that is subtraction. But the child was able to do this subtraction because the child actually understood that concept. And so there are so many other things that the teacher can actually integrate in this study. They were also using technology. This one also was, the topic was meals of the day. So the story was about some bears that have tried to go and have a party, and tortoise happened to be part of them, and then they had to come up with an idea to help them. So as a project, the teacher or a teacher could give an assignment or a project to the children in terms of technology. Children could plan how to help tortoise get up there, because tortoise doesn't have wings to fly. So technology can also come in. So the teacher was showing the children a video of tortoise so that it can help the children in building the ideas as to how they'll help tortoise to get into the party because it doesn't have wings. So the teachers were using outdoor. The first interview, the teachers were complaining that they were not using play to teach because they had issue with space. But now they know that they can use outdoors. And then they said that when they bring the children outdoor, it really affects their mood. The children they were happier and they were more interested in what was going on. And in the last picture there, they can see that there were older children who were also watching. So this has gone beyond just the class. Other children were also there. So social interaction was happening there. The one that the children were doing there was Nana Oho. So it's a visual memory game. The child has to imagine what is happening and then be responding. And the teacher was using that to teach subtraction from 1 to 20, and that was in class 1. Because by the time I went there, the teacher had moved to class 1. And then the teachers were also more reflective. So they said, one of them said, with this approach, I must be prepared before coming to class. And these teachers have been teaching for over at least 9 years. And now the teacher is saying that I cannot go to this, employ this pedagogy without preparing. The other one say you have to sit down. So it means that this preparation is not just a matter of take your notebook, write, and go. You have to sit down. And then the third one, I'll tell you the story about the third one in a bit. Said, I didn't think the children could go this far. Yeah, so that is the teacher who said this teacher taught the part of the body, and the children came together. The teacher they had dramatized, they have done everything, and then the teacher now brought out cut-out shapes, put them together, and then to form a human being. And then when the teacher finished, the children said, but is it a girl? No, the first question was that they said, but human beings must have eye. Then somebody here, it must have nose. Then the teacher said, oh, it's okay. It's okay because the teacher didn't have the cut-out shapes for the facial features. Then I asked the teacher to ask the children, what can we do since you don't have the shapes? Then one child said, oh, but we can draw. Then the teacher took the pencil and they started drawing the facial features. Then when the teacher finished, the children now said, is it a girl? Is it a boy? So the children's understanding of a human being is that it should be a boy or a girl. And there is nothing showing that it's a girl or a boy. But here we can see the power dynamic, the power relation has reduced. The teacher is no more the one who is fully in charge. The children are there, and the teacher has to be open to the children's construction of knowledge. In the second one, the children were to role play cooking meal. They put they were making the fire, the muchia, together. And the one child said, is that how we make the fire? They quickly, disintegrated it and started putting it together. And by the time they finished, you can see that they have really done it in a better way. And there was a lot of communication happening there, negotiation, because you have to make sure that what you are saying, your colleagues understand it and then give you give you the go-ahead. And when they finished with that presentation, they were supposed to do a group presentation. This was in KG2. And then a boy in that group said, a girl must go and do the presentation because in the home is girls who cook. So a girl must do the presentation. The teacher wasn't close, so the teacher didn't hear it.
Doc, you have 3 more minutes.
How many minutes?
3.
Good. So the teacher would have kind of talked to them about some of those stereotypes and all of that. And here, this was a 3.5-year-old child. It was break time, but then attention. He's concentrating so much on what was happening. Okay, so the children became more imaginative as the teachers documented. So where do we go from here? We can do research in terms of looking at children's cognitive, social, and then emotional development throughout the country, comparing it in rural areas and then urban areas. The research was done in a city, so we can do that. And then in terms of organizing teacher professional development, we need the teachers to articulate their own learning needs. And also, we also have to have a longitudinal study. This is one thing which is missing in our context. We have to do a longitudinal study to see how the children are going to be progressing. And in terms of curriculum implementation, Canada is doing something similar to what we are proposing here, where they try to do the indigenous pedagogy alongside the mainstream curriculum. So they have put it there so that they could do it alongside. Resourcing and then funding is also a key factor. Teachers cannot do everything. And then parents also have to be encouraged. At this point, not only parents, because sometimes even the education authorities, they misunderstand the teachers when they try to do some of these things. The teachers were saying, oh, if we try to do these things, GES, when the people from the office, when they come, they'll say that we have not been able to do a lot of exercises. So we really have to educate. There should be an awareness that teachers, children are going to benefit more when we teach them in this way. Outdoor is another thing. In other curriculum, it is a must that we use outdoor. We should also encourage teachers that play-based learning can actually be assessed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. College of Education Studies. Let's welcome representative from the College of Agriculture and Natural Sciences, CANS. Right.
Good morning and good afternoon, Prof. Chair. Permit me to go straight to my presentation. I had a short notice, however, I have something wonderful I just want to share. And after, I think 30 minutes from now, we're doing another presentation, so if you don't see me, I'll just... must sync with the teledictor, not the... Yeah. So I want to talk to you about two most important things that I've been doing for the past 15 to 20 years now. And the first one is reducing post-harvest losses. That was my former lab. And my current lab is reducing food fraud. So, if you permit me. Sorry. Go back. So, I'm talking about tackling post-harvest losses and food safety, food fraud nexus in Africa. You all know that Africa is enjoying or suffering from high post-harvest losses. Often our farmers will tell you that they put so much effort in producing the crop, but at the end we lose about 30 to 40%. That means something must be done. So oftentimes I tell my friends who do crop improvement that when you improve, you're already losing. Why don't we rather, and there the argument starts. But it is good that they improve the crop. But you mind me, of course they will still improve, but the losses are so high. So my point is, why rather not reduce the loss and then we go forward? But of course, they must get job to do, so they must continue to improve. And then the second one had to do with the innovations that I have because of my background with food. I see that Africa is enjoying high levels of food fraud, and it's amounting to about $20 billion a year. That says that if we are also trying to move in a good direction, we should look at overcoming food fraud. The reason is our lab systems are weak. Our activities are always supporting food fraud. And if you put a lot of questions down to ask, have you heard of food fraud? A lot of people will say no. But food fraud has become ubiquitous. That means that everybody enjoys food fraud, whether you know or not. But the earlier you know, the better. It will work now when I stand here. Okay. So I've already summed up the main objective is to develop innovative techniques to overcome post-harvest losses using plant hormones, and also to reduce food fraud by detecting it using artificial intelligence for on-site detection. So these are the two major issues. And in my lab, we've done so many. We've done so many. In fact, 29th, we did a presentation for FAO, UNICRE, and as well, International Atomic Energy Agency. And they were so amazed that tomorrow and this afternoon, we're going to continue. They even pointed out where I got some of the money to do this work, and some of them were sponsored by Drake, so they were mentioned. So you can put it together for Drake. In fact, since 2016, when I did my first presentation, it went global, and they started inviting, because it looks as if nobody in Africa is looking at food fraud, food safety nexus. But I have done that in my lab in a way, using mobile phone, using artificial intelligence, using NIR sensor. So just look at this picture. You've all encountered them before. Post-harvest losses. My visit to Israel in 2017 realized that their post-harvest losses is like 1%. 0.1, sorry. So if 0.1, assuming our cassava is enjoying 70%, 30 to 70% post-harvest losses, and we are able to achieve even 1%, you look at the type of food that we'll be having in abundance. I just visited Agogo on a tour, and I saw a lot of plantain going rotten. It's like, wow, what can I do? So after I visited the Israel, university, I came up with an idea, because there they were using plant hormones to reduce post-harvest loss. So the apple you are consuming here, that is from Israel, is like 2 years old. Can't we do the same for our food commodities and enjoy, let's say, even 3 months, 4 months, and then it will be good? So I did a simple test. If you ask me, I'm not going to tell you. I used to release a lot of secrets, but now I've grown. Yeah, which is good. So, but if you look at the picture, all these are from my house. This one was done in front of my house. This was a treatment we gave to the plantain, and this was control. You could see after 30 days what the decay is. But look at this. Just about after 2 weeks, it started ripening, but this one, no. So it means that we have something to do. This one, MasterCard just gave us some support. So again, 3 months ago, I went around to assess the value chain of tomato in Keta, Angloga, and other places, Begro, and all those areas. And I realized that a farmer, when we did the profitability, was saying that if he could store tomato for just 2 weeks, he's going to make just 1 acre, can make a profit of 50,000 Ghana cedis. For instance, a basket of tomato was costing at that time in the lean season 2,700. Meanwhile, now it's gone. In September, it was costing 300. So from 300, it can go to 2,700. So just imagine. Even you can tell when you are going to buy tomatoes at the market. So what is Israel doing to have 1% that we cannot do? And we tried this in our lab again. This is just a mere trial with the secret we got from Israel. And you can see, this is in the 22nd day. 22nd day, and it's still green. And this one is going bad. You can see the number has just reduced drastically. That tells you that we can do something. And so through this, we can set up the Center of Excellency in UCC, talking about post-harvest losses using plant hormone. And I know my colleague professor here will be happy. I can't do this alone. We can do that together with the university in Israel. The second challenge, which I said is my new fine love, is food fraud. Palm oil, to be specific. This one was sponsored by UKRI, UK Research Innovate. We attempted using a mobile phone and then a scanner so that you can do on-site detection of Sudan dye. All of us here, I can see about 90% have enjoyed Sudan dye, because the analysis we did, it's only Western region and Eastern region that we saw about 70% incidents. 70% incidents. That tells us that if you've bought palm oil before and you sample 10, 7 of them are adulterated. In Central region, we had 80%. So if you buy, it means that. So what can we do? We try achieving that by using this. And currently, we are still even using a little more handheld that could pick the sample on spot. And we are achieving good success. This one is also trying to go very far. Then if you come to agro, again, you all bear with me that our farmers in Ghana are not stupid. Excuse me to use that word. Why are they getting lower yield? It could be what they call GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out. It could be that the farmers are putting garbage in the soil and they are getting garbage produce. Because it's so amazing that for tomatoes or for rice, they are getting 12 tons somewhere. We are getting 2 tons. What is the problem? The problem, last time at Jakarta, I made mention, and one ambassador from Cote d'Ivoire said they are now in court because of fake agrochemicals, fake agro inputs. And now we can confidently say that we've developed something to test these fake agro inputs so as to ensure that you put the right input in the soil and get the right yield. I want to just show you this video. I think I've shown it before. It's just about 5 seconds. Can you help? Oh, too far. Okay, if this video is not happening, in 5 seconds we were testing this palm oil in a lab. You just put a sample in a cup, you scan, and then there you go. It works like magic. In fact, we met a professor in the UK who said he doesn't believe this. So I asked him to sponsor my coming there so I'll prove to him. And then we did that. And that's how come we got the UKRI. And currently, we can say that a company in Accra that exports palm oil to Australia and EU, they are using this. And we are trying to look for a lot of markets. So we use them as a test case so that they go there. Because I don't have a palm oil factory. So I always tell them to go there. And the man is so happy to prove to them that it works. Because samples that others tested that they had, we did it and sent some. It didn't have the dye. So we've done something. At least with this, he's also willing to put, roll on other students. And our students used to go there because the machine we bought there was around $15,000. But it has saved the man about 5 containers of palm oil going outside. So with this, he can do each and every oil before he goes. He's not going to do selective. Like my friend will say, your head is different from somebody's head. So if I use your head, and I say, because your head doesn't have Sudan dye, all the hairs here don't have. From your head, so it's just as a click of a button, you can actually determine. Free fatty acid. The values we've got so far. Okay. Hello? Hello? Okay, thank you. Thank you. So the values we got so far are, somebody met us and was trying to condemn this, but we realized that he doesn't understand where we are going to. Mercedes-Benz did not start one day to become nice as it is. Even every year, are releasing new models. Now we've moved from this model to a higher one, which we bought recently and got a collaborator from Taiwan who is interested to work with us. He sent and we've tried that one. It's working magic. We are yet to even tell them how far it has gone, but we all believe that we'll go far. So this is the finance. You can see it's obvious. We have something to give out. And I know Michael Edu, Professor Michael Edu is happy about this because he can now enjoy his garden eggs for a long time. And then when you come to fertilizer as well, I'm not a crop person. I'm sure those doing crop here will be happy. You can now also test your fertilizer on site before you apply. And this has a cross-cutting effect on all the sustainable development goals. If you cannot produce healthy food because you are applying fake fertilizer, which ends up going to the environment, which ends up going to the water body, which ends up putting less money in the pocket of the farmer, then you know that this is something we should all try and push TNS and his agenda of becoming the next president of food integrity in Africa. But this is to tell you that, again, A simple scan, you can see the difference. Aspire fertilizer. And we sent questionnaire around. I think D-Hub helped a UK company to sponsor us to just do the sensitization and see. And it was so amazing. We saw fertilizer in the north mixed with sea sand. Can you imagine a farmer applying fertilizer to get his 10 tons per hectare? And now he's applying sea sand, maybe collected from Ogwa and sent to Tamale. Look at the weight. It's so sad. But we've tried our best with this. It will go far. So what are we trying to say? It's implication. We want them to support stricter punishment. They should give stricter punishment. And they should, again, help us develop the NIR so that we could put it at the port of entries. And this one, you don't need to be even educated to operate the machine. Because mobile phone operation in Africa, especially Ghana, is more than 80%. That means that this technology could be applied by a lot of people. We should also promote. This is where now I am doing my best. I talk to a lot of people, they seem not to understand that let's promote the use of plant hormones in Ghana. In Ghana, at least the little we've done has shown that we could do. And this one will save us from that huge investment we put in cold storage. Cold storage, because this at least can stay for about 30 days to 40 days, and then we go our way. Again, because of the portability of near-infrared spectroscopy, it can go places. Therefore, a center in UCC collaborating with maybe Ghana Standard Authority should be set up. Not to condemn the technology, because Germany, last 2 months we were there, they are using it for their grain industry. Why can't we use it? We are even having the challenges of importing chemicals to do analysis. Now, if you want to buy chemicals, it's expensive. Why don't we embrace near-infrared technology so that we could help solve the problem of food fraud? So in a nutshell, these two things are what I have tried to tackle. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Tay. We can do it better for him. Whilst we're doing that, we'll call on the College of Distance Education to help us with the next presentation. Let's do it for code. Are you okay?
Yeah. Here we come.
Okay. Code presentation is on effect of self-efficacy in the relationship between mental health problems and academic performance of distant learners. Okay, research has shown that mental health problems among university students has risen, with stress accounting for 84.4% and anxiety accounting for 88.4%. There's also a report that access to mental health utilization in the United States have increased. Students are now patronizing the mental health services to access for help. The mental health problem, according to Zan, do not only have impact on students' psychological well-being, it also affects their academic performance. And looking at the nature of distant learners, we all know who our distant learners are. They are workers, they are parents who have families, they have other social responsibilities, and they are schooling at the same time. and it is assumed that they may be experiencing a lot of mental health challenges that we are not aware of. Moreover, at the University of Cape Coast, our distant learners are not on campus. They are scattered across various locations. And so, looking at mental health problems and academic performance, we saw that self-efficacy, which is an individual's belief in him or herself to accomplish a task and also achieve a goal or outcome, can mediate the relationship between these two variables. So the aim is to investigate the mediating role of self-efficacy in the relationship between mental health problems and academic performance of distant learners at the University of Cape Coast. The objectives, we want to see whether there's a difference between mental health problems, and we use 3 internalizing mental health issues in literature, which are depression, anxiety, and stress against academic performance. And then we also look to find whether there's statistical significant difference between learners who have mental health issues and those without mental health issues in relation to self-efficacy and their academic performance. And then thirdly, we want to examine how self-efficacy will mediate the relationship between mental health and academic performance issues. The study design was explanatory research design. And then we used 510 CODE undergraduate learners from 20 study centers across Ghana. In fact, currently, CODE has 10 administrative regions. We have not moved to the 16 regions yet. We are still operating within the 10 administrative regions. So for a study center where we have, we selected one regional capital study center and then one district study center. So where we have more than one, we use the simple random sampling technique. Where it is only one, the purposive sampling technique was used to select 20 study centers from each of the regions, 2 from each region for the study. Now, the findings. We look at mental health, like I already said. All the skills in the study were adopted. We adopted the depression skill, the anxiety skill, perceived skill, and even academic performance skill was adopted. Why did we do that? Because we didn't want mere test scores. So the McGregor's academic performance skill tells us how students are able to exert behaviors or the energy they put in their studies to achieve the outcome. And so it has 8 items, and we use that because of errors in variance due to cheating and then also grading biases. So we want to find out from the student the behavior they put up to acquire the academic performance they claimed they have. So the findings show that students with low depression and high depression, the significant research objective 1, significant difference in mental health problem and academic performance. From a cursory look on the screen, we could see that there is the mean increase for academic performance for those who have low depression. So when students' depression is low, all other things being equal, the academic performance will be high. And when they have high depression, the mean shows that the academic performance will be low. And it runs through for all the 3 mental health problems that were assessed. Then we look at the significant difference in relation to self-efficacy and academic performance. So what is the performance of students with mental health problem and those without mental health problem? And we could see that those without mental health problems, the academic performance is still high than those without mental health problems. And then when we look at the self-efficacy, those without mental health problem, they still have high self-efficacy than those without mental health problem. Then we ran a maneuver test to find out the effects of mental health status on self-efficacy and academic performance. So the pillars trace intersection shows that mental health status is significant at 0.49 when we look at the partial eta square. And so it shows that the mental health status of our students is very, very significant. Then, still with the ANOVA results, I don't want to read. So there's a magnitude of effect of mental health problem on academic performance of distant learners, and it accounts for 49% of the variations in both academic performance and then self-efficacy. This confirms the results established in 2. So we look at the direct effect and then the indirect effect on the mediating role of self-efficacy in the relationship between mental health problem and academic performance. And it still shows statistical significant total effect between anxiety and performance, and then between depression and performance, and also between stress and academic performance. So with the inclusion of the mediating variable, that is self-efficacy, the results still showed a statistical significant direct effect. Then when we look at the indirect effect, it still shows a significant effect. So this simply tells us that self-efficacy mediates the relationship between mental health problems and academic performance, just partially. Because whether people have the desire or the belief in themselves to excel and then to accomplish tasks or not, still mental health has an impact on their academic performance. So in conclusion, we look at implications for practice and then implications for policy. Okay, so this is just a path diagram showing the relationship between the mediator, predator, and then the criterion variables that were established. So in conclusion, for policy, we are saying that because our distant learners are not with us on campus, there should be a program that emphasizes mental health awareness, and then it will also foster self-efficacy, creating more supportive learning environments for our students at the various study centers. And then also, there should be a policy guide that will reinforce mental health initiatives and integrate self-efficacy development within our educational framework for our distant learners. Most often, when it comes to graduation, the pass rate for our distant learners outweighs all the classes put together, and then people make a lot of noises, but we have not investigated to find out how they are faring. And so we are saying that for practice, there should be interventions and support systems needed to address the unique mental health challenges of our distant learners. And then our academic advisors and support providers should be given training to enhance their ability to recognize mental health issues, and then how they can be able to provide help and then supportive strategies to our students within the country. Thank you very much.
Very much, Doc. Thank you very much, Code. So the College of Health and Allied Sciences will take their turn. Let's welcome Kohas.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about breast, since everybody likes breast. Okay, so in 2022, we had 2.3 million cases of breast cancer, and out of that, over 600,000 died. So we are talking about 29% of cases diagnosed resulted in death. For Ghana, we had 5,000 cases and about 2,500 died. So we are talking about almost 50% in Ghana. And this is because in Ghana, almost all cases are presented late. Stage 3, stage 4, and there's nothing you can do for them. And then worldwide, blacks also have more aggressive breast cancers. And we also get our breast cancers averagely around 41 years. Normal whites have, the Caucasians have it around 55 to 60 years, so we get it earlier. So even though more whites get breast cancer, more blacks die from breast cancer than whites. So over here, you can see some of the devastating effects of breast cancer, and we sometimes wonder why women would stay for this long to let this happen to them before coming to the hospital. And don't forget that men also can get breast cancer. So now we know the problem. What do we do? One effective way is early detection. Early detection. So that means screening should be a very important thing that we should do. And then screening should be 10 years earlier than the onset average. So if in Africa we are getting our breast cancers around 41 years, then screening should start like 31 years. However, mammography, which is called the gold standard, is not the best for Africa. One, mammography cannot be used for women below 40 years old. So since we need to start at 31, mammography won't help us. The whites, because their breast cancer start at 50, that's why they develop mammography to screen at 40. So we can use it. So that's out. And then ultrasound is also another alternative. But let's look at the cost of mammography or ultrasound. It's over 200 cedis each. So that one is not available and it's expensive. So in Ghana, the first choice is normally clinical breast examination, where you go and the doctor will lie down and the doctor will now feel your breast like a mosquito coil, or going down, or self-breast examination, where you do it yourself. But you know that do it yourself is not the best. And then with clinical breast examination, it depends on the experience of the person doing it, and even the size of a breast, because a small lump in a large breast is difficult to identify. And in we blacks, we have dense breast, so it even makes it more difficult. So we need something else. So we need something else which will be cheaper, reliable, and effective. And this should not replace, but should serve as an adjunct to the screening process. So in comes a device that we call the breast eye, breast light. The first generation is the breast light. That's the one on top. And this is the fourth generation. And it was developed by Dr. Gatti. He's not here. Dr. Gatti at the medical school, together with the Scottish partners, they developed this tool which we use now. So typically, this is what cancer looks like. As you can see, is that small lump over there surrounded by many blood vessels. So the blood vessels are what we call angiogenesis. So cancer cells can produce its own blood vessels, and these blood vessels feed it. So cancer cells grow faster than normal cells because of these own blood vessels. That's why even when we take out a lump from the breast, we need to irradiate the area around it so that we can kill all these blood vessels. So this machine actually works based on the blood vessels. It means that it's in the red region of the visible spectrum. So when you put it underneath the breast lights up. But anything black becomes black. So the machine detects hemoglobin, and blood has hemoglobin. So anything black becomes black. So if you look at a normal breast, it will appear red with black lines in it for your veins. So that's how the machine works. So it may not be clear here, but if you look at it, you can see the thick arrows showing the veins within the breast. So that's how it works. So it detects breast. So now, can breast eye be used as a screening tool? And then can it detect non-palpable masses as well? When you say a mass is non-palpable, it means when you do the CBE, you can't feel it. When it's palpable, you can feel it. And then can it predict suspicious masses? And finally, can it be recommended for national screening? So over here, you can see some positive cases. Again, the nipple area is the dark area, and then the large areas are showing black spots. So any suspicious lump that has blood vessels around it will appear as a black spot. So when we put it underneath you, we are just looking out for the black spot. When we see a black spot, we say we've seen something suspicious. And then we recommend you to Dr. Mona or CCTH for them to follow up. So it is a purely screening tool. It's not a diagnostic tool. So these are 4 examples of black spots that we saw. And then we always advise women that whenever you squeeze your breast and anything apart from milk comes out, rush to the hospital. If it's milk, fine, we can look at it. So in these 2 cases, they squeezed their breast and blood came out. And then the breast light showed the source of where the blood was coming out. So that is how it operates. So scientifically, we needed to prove it so that it will be convincing. So we did 2 studies. This is the first study we did, Central Region and Greater Accra Region. We used 2,224 women. And we did CBE versus breast light. The CBE, we used nurses, 2 very experienced nurses. They've done CBE for almost 30 years. So we use them. So out of the 2204, they found 153 cases that needed further investigations. Breast light found, out of the one, it was blind. When they do it, they don't tell us. So they do it and we also do it. So out of the 153, breast light was able to identify 136, confirm 136 out of it. And then breast light was able to identify 22, which they missed. So overall, breast light identified 158, and they were 153. So out of the 153, 19 of them was positive when we did further tests. So 19 of them had breast cancer. Out of our 136, 17 had breast cancer. And then if you take the 22 that breast light alone detected, 7 of them were positive. So overall, breast light, out of the 26 patients, breast light was able to detect 24, whilst CBE detected 19. So if you do the ratio, breast light had a 92% chance of catching it than CBE. And then if you look at the various ages, you realize that below 45 years, we have 38% of women having breast cancer below 45 years. If you shift to 48, if you move within this region, the number increases to 57. So we are getting more cancers below 48 years old. So the research questions. Can breast light be an effective screening tool? Yes, because with the current CBE, we had 92% and CBE had 73%. Can it detect non-palpable masses? Yes, because breast light can go as low as 0.9 centimeters. 0.9 centimeters. Breast light will detect it. So it can detect it. And then can it predict suspicious? Because it detects angiogenesis. Any positive by breast light means it needs further check. So it can predict angiogenesis. And then can it be recommended as an alternative screening tool? Yes, because of the high percentage and because it is also very cheap. Right? Normally, if you come to my office, it's free. But when you come to the library, because I have to hide the canopies and the teas, that's why we charge. So breast screening is actually free. Right? So if you don't want to pay, if you don't want to pay for the tears to enjoy some more money, you come to my office. So yes, we recommend it. Fine. People come all the time, so it's not surprising. So due to that, we believe that the government should institute a national screening program for it. So other advantages. If you come and we are not sure, we can take a photograph and tell you to come the following month. So when you come, you compare the two photographs and then see whether it's growing or not. It can also be used to the progression of treatment. As you treat, we should see it shrinking. And then most women, once I put the light into your breast, you are supposed to look at your breast, right? And when they look at their breast and they see it, and they sometimes say, oh, can you check here? Can you check here for me? So when they play a role in the health, they are also confident. And then ladies who feel squeamish about lying down for a guy to touch your breast, they prefer this because it is done in the dark. And then sometimes blood vessels, the nurses borrow it in order to set IVs because you can't see it. And then now the urologists have been borrowing it for testicular torsion. When they check your balls and then there is something wrong, they can now use it. So, policy. Well, currently in Ghana, for every 120 women we screen, we get one case. So it's 0.8% penetrance. And it's going to increase, right? It's going to increase in the world. With our galamsey crowd, it's even worse. So yes, we are proposing that a nationwide screening should start. If you go abroad, most of the cases it was detected through screening. That's why they detected stage 1, stage 2. It's cheap, no doom saw, easy to operate. And then, 0.4. The guy who did it, David Wadmott, he died from COVID complications. So now, breast light is up for patent next year. So UCC can buy the patent, and then UCC can now be the sole producer of breast light in the world. It's 20,000 pounds. And then, if you can't buy the patent, you can even buy the franchise so that we can use it in Africa. Thank you very much.
Very much. College of Health and Allied Sciences. Prof. Doku, it's interesting how Professor Du wants to change his profession. At the mention of the breast now, he's asking for the light. You just need a light. But, you know, the interesting thing is that it's done in the dark. Did you hear that? Saying. Right. So thank you very much, Kohas. Thank you very much, Kohas. Sorry to burst your bubble, Professor Du. It's in the dark. Let's welcome IEPA with a round of applause. No? Is DHAB here? Is DHAB here? So there's DHAB. IEPA, no, they want to find out if there's another presentation. So DHAB is around too, yes. So let's welcome IEPA.
Okay, so it's afternoon already. Good afternoon. Our presentation is on Developing Strategic Leadership Competencies in Education, Insights from the Pilot National Education Leadership Institute. Okay, so I think yes. So I'll start from the preamble that we all acknowledge that leadership is very important in every institution. And as Prof. Adai says, leadership is cause, all others are effect. However, when it comes to education, it is a well-established fact that educational leadership or school leadership comes only second to classroom teaching in terms of the factors that contribute to academic performance. So for a very long time, if you look at the Ghanaian landscape, we don't pay particular attention to school leadership or educational leadership. How do we even appoint our school leaders? Do we give them any kind of training before they are appointed? And after appointment, what kind of leadership training do they, or leadership training opportunities do they benefit from? So, with the evidence that school leadership is important, we have been trying to advocate for school leadership to be seen or to be made policy such that it becomes compulsory for every school leadership or every school leader to be trained before appointment. We've been doing this for quite some time, and luckily for us, we had funding from the Jacobs Foundation. Sorry, it's not Jacobs Foundation, it's the Big Win Foundation, to pilot the National Education Leadership Institute, where we had school leaders and then aspiring school leaders undergoing some kind of training. However, this is the pilot. And to make it national policy, we had to collect some monitoring and evaluation data to see the extent to which the pilot was effective. So this is not strict hardcore research, but then the methodology in collecting the data, we used on-site observations. We also had surveys through the learning management platforms that the participants utilized. We also had some focus group discussions and individual interviews. But all of these were largely self-reported data. So what we did was that post the training, we went to the schools and workplaces of those who took part in the National Education Leadership Institute to speak to their colleagues so that they can gauge and then rate their performance in terms of the competencies that we were expecting before and then after the training. So that is what we did. So I'll present some of the key insights that we found. So based on the monitoring and evaluation data, these are some of the key issues that came up. The NELI pilot training program registered about 300 educational leaders, and through the training program, they were equipped with the essential strategic leadership skills. So we have several modules that we have developed, but for the pilot, we use a strategic leadership module. And at the end, 331 out of the 370 participants met the eligibility criteria for certification. So post the training, each of them is given some kind of certification. But some of them did not complete the tasks that were given to them. So in that regard, they could not qualify for the training, so for the certificate. And then also, we noticed that at least 83.7% of the participants were successful in acquiring the relevant skills that we were expecting through the tasks, the management and leadership tasks that were given to them. So they had the portfolio and other things that they used, which were assessed by independent assessors, and eventually 83.7% of them were successful. Then the face-to-face survey, what we did was we went to the workplaces of those who took part, but we asked them to rate their colleagues on the specific competencies that they were exposed to before and then after the training. And you can see that in all of them, we can see some marked differences. So in terms of shared vision and mission, prior to the training, the colleagues' ratings averaged 3.8. However, post the training, it averaged 4.5, giving a 0.7 difference. And you can see from all these that in all the areas, there were some differences. But if you look at the last two, team building and understanding individual strengths and challenges, the differences were just 0.2 and then 0.1. But you can see that if you look at the pre-Nelly data, the averages were already high. So they could not really go too high as well. So that is why the differences are not too much. So this gives us an indication that the Nelly training was quite effective. So some key lessons. What is happening right now is that post the pilot, we have sent the pilot report to the Ministry of Education, and they are putting together a cabinet memo so that school leadership training could be made a prerequisite to appointment as school leaders at the pre-tertiary level. And then also, the Nelly training would be one of the modules or the pathways to obtaining certification prior to becoming a school leader. So these are some of the key lessons that we also drew from the training. We utilized an innovative approach, delivery approach, using the flipped classroom approach, where students had, I shouldn't be using students, let me use school leaders, had opportunity to the material before they came for discussions. So they would have a period where they would engage with the material using virtual platforms. And then once in every month, one weekend in every month, we would meet and have a discussion on what they have learned. And we noticed that that approach helped more than the regular kind of classroom and the workshop approach that we have been using for some time. And the good thing too is that from how it was approached, we now have a replicable model. We have a carefully documented SOP, leaders working together with the district level leaders, working together with the regional level leaders, working together with the national level leaders. That created an opportunity for networking. However, we ensured that tasks that were assigned to them took into consideration their working context. And then also, the Nelly itself as it is, we can see that it addresses a very important educational challenge. We always complain about leadership, not only even at the school level, also at the national level. And where does it start from? The school level. So we are thinking that if we model good leadership at the school level, then we can nurture the students so that when they grow up, they can also exhibit their their leadership potentials. And well, this may not be relevant to our context now, but the training, we had some issues with the training environment. And that is something that we also reported, and it's something we think that we can improve upon in subsequent trainings. So we have a few recommendations for the Ministry of Education. So we are saying that the Ministry of Education should develop a policy to make educational leadership training a prerequisite to educational leadership appointments. And then we must also ensure that we align leadership competencies from the training for targeted skill development. And then we should develop systems to ensure that the Nelly is economically viable and sustainable. As I said, the pilot was actually sponsored. So in that regard, it was, because it was sponsored, those who were participating were even paid something to participate. But if you want it to become national policy, is this financially sustainable? So you must find ways of, if it becomes national policy, and to be appointed, you have to go through this. Then we have to negotiate such that they would have to pay something to take part in the kind of training, because it enhances their own opportunities to rise in their profession. And then finally, we are also advocating that the National Education Leadership Institute should be institutionalized. And if it is institutionalized, the good thing is that because IEPA led, then it will be something that would belong to the University of Cape Coast, and we can pursue it. Though the ministry, at this time, the ministry is the one that was coordinating. Then the partners. IEPA worked together with Ghana ASCD and then the Nelly Secretariat. But as I have said, IEPA played a lead role in this. So we are hoping that if it becomes a national policy, then IEPA will continue with the leadership role and become something for the University of Cape Coast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, IEPA. We'll call on DHAB. Let's welcome DHAB, please.
Okay, good afternoon to us all. Okay, my name is Enoch Alali. I'm from DHAB, and then we are here to present on all right. So we are presenting on edible organic pesticide for vegetable farming, and I'm here with my team member.
Agnes Joy.
All right, the other person is not around. Please, it's not the actual slide that we have to use. Can you change the latest one? Please, it's not this one. We sent an updated one. Okay. Okay, so what we want to share with you is a lab work, a research that is gradually transitioning to commercialization to show that we are not just doing practicals in the laboratory, but we are transitioning to making impact in our country and beyond. So it started during my undergraduate studies where I worked with my supervisor, Professor Tulashi. Our goal was to produce an organic pesticide for vegetable farming by making good use of our own local raw materials, that is, the neem plant, lemongrass, and other plants that we used. After that, we produced our pesticide and we tested it at the lab with some few vegetable crop pests. And it turned out to be highly efficient. The findings showed that using this neem plant and the lemongrass as well as the other local plants that we are adopting could effectively control vegetable pests, thereby eradicating the use of these synthetic pesticides that turn out harmful to our environment. So, based on the results we got, it shows that there is a need for entrepreneurs like us to not just leave it at a laboratory level, but take it on to commercialization. More so, there is a need to educate farmers on how to make good use of this potent solution we discovered, and then how to use it. Likewise, it is a call to the government to invest more resources in this sector that will benefit our country. As I said earlier, we are transitioning from the laboratory work to commercialization, and that gave birth to Emon Joy as we stand here. So Emon Joy is an organization that focuses on the production of edible organic pesticide for vegetable farming. Most of our farmers today have been robbed of their joy because of these synthetic pesticides that they intend to use to address the pests and diseases on their vegetable farms. People like one man we met called Yangsen. He narrated to us his devastating experience as a vegetable farmer, whose goal was not just to sell locally, but beyond the shores of Ghana. But unfortunately, his entire shipment upon arrival at the international market got rejected, simply because he had used these synthetic pesticides, which are not healthy to our system, as well as leads to environmental pollution. Come to think of it, statistically, according to the FAO, over 60% of vegetable crop yield is lost annually to pests and diseases. And farmers attempt to address this, end up using the synthetic pesticides, which consequently result in over 60% of serious health implications in Ghana specifically, as reported by the WHO. Likewise, over 70% of environmental pollution emanate from the use of these synthetic pesticides. The most devastating aspect is that over 97% of vegetable farmers in West Africa are unable to sell beyond the shores of West Africa simply because they use these synthetic pesticides. And that is what we are coming here to provide these farmers their joy that is due them with our package of an edible, organic, affordable, and eco-friendly pesticide. And that is the aspect that makes our product so distinct from others that are in the market. There are few organic pesticides in the market, but those ones are imported ones. They are very expensive, which our farmers are not able to afford. Most farmers, when we embarked on our market research, we got to realize that they want to go actually into organic farming, but the cost of these synthetic pesticides, as well as the few available organic pesticides in the market, are really expensive, which they are unable to afford. And even the few ones who are able to do that, they end up complaining that they don't get the profit they actually intend to get. We are not just doing this alone, but we are being partnered by the DHub, that is the Design Thinking and Innovation, the Cosmos Innovation Center, and then the PWG farm at Takoradi, who, upon hearing the solution that we are bringing on board, was willing to offer us some of the raw materials we'll be using when we go into full production. We embarked further on research to ascertain the market size that is available for vegetable farming in Ghana and in West Africa at large. And we discovered that in West Africa alone, we have a total addressable market size of $0.95 billion. And when you narrow it to Ghana, we have it of $48.7 million. And then considering Central Region, Western Region, and Greater Accra, we have $27.5 million. This is a very huge market size waiting for our product. When our product is fully launched, it will be made available in the market through sales agents and then several agri departments, that is as we start up, so that people will get to know of us and they can patronize us. Our product will be sold at a very affordable cost of 45 Ghana cedis. That is what we envision to do when we start. But that doesn't mean it is the fixed price we'll be selling. As time goes on, the price will increase at a production cost of 35 Ghana cedis. This is our estimated projection as startups. And we are intending to make impact not just by making money for ourselves, but we want to impact the smallholder farmer by helping them to increase their revenue by at least 35%. Then we are also giving back the joy of consumers like us by increasing the availability of chemical-free vegetables, so that when you go to the market, you will not be afraid that what I'm going to buy might cause harm to me. Why would you use your own money to buy your own sickness? That is not fair. And that is why we are here as entrepreneurs to commercialize on what we started at the laboratory and make it a reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, D-Hub. We can do it better for D-Hub. And that would be the very final presentation. I'll call on Professor Didier J, who is representing Provost of the College of Education Studies, to give the closing remarks on behalf of our chair. Let's welcome him.
Thank you very much. So, I have to wear two hats today. I came in to represent my provost, and I'm the chair. I hope I'll manage it well. So I think that there has been a simple message for all of us. If you listen carefully, it is about promoting cutting-edge research and also looking at the impact this research has on the community. So it's all about cutting-edge research and innovations. So if you listen carefully to the director, that was his focus. The VC also mentioned about rankings in the university, which our performance are as a result of these cutting-edge researchers. I also saw, and I'm sure you agree with me, that all the presentations that have been done today, they are really innovative. Very, very, very challenging, problem-solving researchers. I didn't see any research which was presented which is not targeting the solution to a problem. So I believe that these cutting-edge researchers are the focus, and we are being called upon to pursue. I am pretty sure that there are many more researchers at individual levels within the colleges which are ongoing. I don't want to go into trying to summarize these researches that were presented, but I think I have just 2 or 3 things to say for us to think through as we live here. I think the first thing is about the need. So when we look at our theme, the 3 things has got to do with the role we can play, because it's the role of state and non-state actors. But I am asking us also to reflect as an institution, what roles can we play? And I'll share just 3 as I listen to the researchers. 1, I think we need to continue to produce this innovative research. So as individuals within the colleges, as individuals, I think one of the things we need to advise ourselves today is we must continue to work alongside the way we have seen today. The issue about publishing for promotion should be an issue of the past, because we are really now looking at how we can solve problems. So the issue of publishing for promotion, I think, should be an issue of the past. And as members of the institution, we need to think about that. Publishing in predicting journals. Look at such rich data. Sometimes the quest to get promotion, you quickly identify a very cheap journal and you waste your data. Just waste your data. So I think that's one of the things, the roles we are supposed to think about as individuals and as colleges. I remember Drake shared more than a year ago the report of how the colleges are doing. I think as academics, colleges, it is time to go back and reflect and see what interventions have we put in place to move from where we are, where are we now, what things are we doing. These are the things I think we need to think about. Collaboration is another issue. We need to think of how we can collaborate. If you listen carefully, they are working in teams. So I think one of the things, or one of the roles we need to think about is collaboration, the power of collaboration in cutting-edge research. Support systems. We are aware what Drake is doing to provide support. We heard a number of the presenters talk about Drake support. I think as individuals and colleges, can we, if we are not already doing it, set up some kind of fund also to support some of these cutting-edge researchers to support what Drake is doing? I think this is something we need to think about. And also, if the colleges, we are not doing it, we need to embark on that. Maybe the last thing I learned or want to share has also got to do with how to bridge the gap between research findings and practice. And maybe Drake. So we're talking about most of the presentation were applied research. There is an intervention to be done. There's a service to be provided. There's a product to be sold out there. I'm talking about commercialization. How can the institution, that's where maybe Drake may come in, can we think of ways and means also to support commercialization of some of these research findings so that we can bridge the gap between some of these research findings and practice? I think in the long run, it's not just going to provide a service or solve a problem, but it could also be an avenue for creating jobs and making money for the institution. So that's something I also want to add for Drake to think about. Maybe they can set up a fund like this for researchers within the institution to assess. Having said this, I want to thank you all so much. It has been a very long day, but your patience, your kindness, you didn't walk away. I think I want to thank you. I want to thank Drake also for putting this up for us. I think that the program is not over. Tomorrow, there is a panel discussion, and then there's a public lecture on the 6th, and on Thursday, we have research awards. So I want to entreat all of you, and those who are not here, let's tell them so that we can all come and increase the occasion. On this note, I thank you very much, and I wish us all well.
Thank you very much, Professor Jay. So it's a wrap for today. As our chairperson said, I don't know how to describe, is it acting chair? Is there anything like that? Acting square, because he's doing two things at the same time. Thank you very much. So as he indicated, tomorrow there's going to be a panel discussion, and the topic is creation of research centers of excellence for sustainable development. And our panel members include Professor Jofus Anamwa-Mensah. He is a former VC of UEW. Professor Ellis Owusu-Dabo is former Pro-VC KNUST. Professor Dennis Walonyo Aheto is director of ASCO UCC. And our moderator is Professor Michael Oseyedu, Soil Science Department, UCC, and he's going to give us the closing prayer. Crop science. So the point is that he quickly wants to swap to become a breast tester. So that is what is going to happen. Prof, you give us the closing prayer. I'm bent on you praying.
Akusia is bent on me praying today. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful unto you. We're grateful that we invited you and you did not disappoint yet again. You have made this a success. We thank you for the favor, for the grace, for the insightful research that we've seen today. We pray that as we depart here, we do not depart your presence. You would go with us and make the rest of our day to a blessing. We ask that the rest of the program, from tomorrow and the rest, you take your seat in it and make it a glory unto your holy name. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow the program starts at 10 a.m. Please make sure you are here. Invite other people, students, to join to make it a success. Thank you.
I'm here with the Association of African Universities Television, AUTV. I just want to say that without the media, you won't know what's going on in the world. Even with the media, you sometimes don't know what's going on in the world. So you need to tune in to the reliable sources who are really on the front lines, who can give you the information you need and give you facts, not conjecture, give you real news, not fake news. And this is the place to find it, AUTV.
The voice of higher education in Africa.